I'd like to introduce Sarbari Basu. She is a Director of Global Talent Operations for Cummins Distribution. She has over 20 years experience in operational, functional, and business HR roles and supported efforts in over 5 international countries. She currently leads people strategy, HR operational and process excellence, and workforce analytic efforts for Cummins Distribution. She's here today to talk about great conversations to improve supervisor quality and drive employee engagement in frontline service operation roles. She's going to talk a little bit about the defining of the problem and then also kind of the solution design and some of the challenges that they've incurred through. So with that, we'll turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. So great afternoon sessions, always challenging. And I'm actually going to present a problem to you. Hopefully the problem in a manufacturing setup is not a new problem. I'm not going to give you a solution because we don't have one, but I'm going to talk about the solution design. And if we could solve the problem, that would be a fabulous, great win. But we haven't got
They're going to send you back every year then.
Absolutely. But I will talk about kind of what the problem is and how we're taking a very different approach. So before I do that, I'm part of whatever, Cummins is a fairly well-known name in the power industry and trucking, heavy-duty trucking particularly, engine space. We are a distribution business. So we started out being a collection of entities that Cummins acquired. We're an after-sales service. So basically the best metaphor I can give you is the image of your car service station. So when you take your car in for service at the dealers, that is distribution business where we do service of trucks, generators, buses, RVs, you name it, we do it. And so our primary revenue stream is, interestingly, we do sell our products, so we sell them not to the Chryslers and the large companies. We sell it to smaller fleet owners, and we sell it to individuals in some cases. In some countries, in different parts of the world, individuals buy gensets. So we actually sell sub 500 kVA gensets to individuals. So our reach, whereas Cummins' reach is very large, we go to the main OEMs, and that's where we stay, the Packards and the Peterbilts of the world. Our reach is very small. So we're a retail business, which is very different from the manufacturing paradigm. We do service, so our revenue is actually driven by our technicians. We have service technicians, mechanics, electricians that we hire, and we bill their hours. And they're actually our first line of defense and the first contact with our customers. So I was listening to Disney this morning, actually to the gentleman who was speaking when he was talking about the street sweepers in Disney, who are kind of definer of your experience in a Disney park. That's who, interestingly, you would think it would be the characters, etc. But no, it's the person that makes sure you have a clean park, you know where to go, where they reach out and influence a customer's experience. For us, that's our technicians. And in a world where already trade skills are scarce, people enrolling in these trades is going down, this is a quickly shrinking population. So that's kind of our challenge here. We can't find enough technicians, so we have to be able to keep them, the ones that we have. They have to be sufficiently motivated so that they interact with our customers in the way that we need them to. And we've got to be able to grow them. And oh, by the way, everybody else wants them. So that's kind of our paradigm. And then we do support, which is we have people that sell parts. So we have parts counters. We have people that have to be able to literally recall thousands of SKUs and be able to find out where does that little screw washer part sit in the warehouse. So it's a lot of hourly folks that we deal with. We have about 16,800 odd people. We're about $7 billion in revenue. The number that I want you to focus on, I'm going to talk about, is the 600 distributor locations. So that's a global number. In the United States, we have about 420. And the size of these locations could vary between one that is in New Jersey and has 130 employees, and where we do the service for New Jersey bus transit, or it could be 15 people in Kenner, Louisiana. So that's how different the scale is. The business model is the same. Theoretically, the process should be the same. The numbers just matter. And then you throw in 90+ countries that we operate in, it just becomes this completely different and a much more layered problem. So I work in HR, and it's interesting that I'm in a session like this, and I've been hearing a lot about people talking about HR, because whenever you do either change efforts or you do transformation efforts, there's a big people component to it, and people say HR, and then I hear a shift in the tone. It's interesting. It's always nice to know what our peers think about us. But I will tell you, I am the less known side of HR. I work on the process side, and I work on transformation side. So my job is a little bit interesting in there. But this is the story of this. Unless we have these extraordinary technicians, unless these guys stay with us and grow with us, we're not going to make money. The equation is as simple. And where all this happens is literally at our branch. Our branches, so we're trying out this kind of best branch concept. It's like your McDonald's. The customer wants a consistent experience. If you look at just the size of our branches, I mean, literally, I probably, in the 11 years that I've been with Cummins Distribution, I've traveled to a lot of different branches, and no two branch looks the same. From your bays to your warehouse, to the look and feel, to the signage, everything is different, because we acquired these entities. And now we're saying to the customer, oh, come to any of our locations, 600+ in the world, and you will get the same experience. It doesn't happen. You have to do a lot of change management, a lot of being able to engage with the employee for that magic to happen. And so I'm basically saying that the nerve center of everything that happens at Cummins Distribution is not our corporate offices, it's not our factories, but it's our plant, it's our branches. And that's where we need to focus. And this is the service manager, who is the guy that runs the branch. And if you look at, I've talked to service managers and tried to map what their job is. And I once came across a presentation that one of my colleagues had put together, which said that the primary role of a frontline manager is to manage talent. And I kind of took a look at that and said, okay, I can give you money on the table right now. If you go ask 10 service managers, they're going to say no. My job is to get engines out the door. My job is to take care of the customer. My job is to manage the facilities, make sure there are no safety incidents, make sure that if there is a local event, that I'm represented there, handle media, handle press, handle the local, police, administration, etc. There's a, member of parliament visit, I need to go out and represent Cummins. All that is my job. Plus, I have people that I manage. So now Bob doesn't want to work with Joe, and Joe doesn't want to come in when Mary is in the break room. I have all of these issues. I have labor contracts. So the guy who manages 15 people has all of this. The guy who manages 130 people also has all of this. So that's the scope and the scale of a service manager's life. And what we're saying is, oh, now you also need to help us retain our people. You need to help us retain our people, you need to help us grow them. And if you do all that, then we'll make tons of money, and we'll keep making money, and you will get more, variable pay. And then we kind of stepped back and said, what do our technicians say about the role of talent management? I mean, do they even see the value, or is it just, I come, I do a job, I get paid, I get overtime, and I go home? I'm going to share a video with you, which I personally found very telling, and I hope to God it actually works.
Schooling got me really good basic knowledge to start off in. Obviously, as you work into the field, you progress, learn more with the hands-on, and then with the current training also that Cummins provides.
A few years later down the line, I moved up to A. I'm currently in A still. I'm a quick serve technician, and I would like eventually to move up to maybe be either a field service technician or a DFSC.
At Cummins, you kind of create your own career path. You work with your supervisor. They see what you're doing. You tell them what you want to do, and they help you get there. With me, I wanted more electronics generated, and I do more electronics and generated.
I've been with Cummins for 20 years. I started as an in-shop helper, evolved to a growth technician for the last 17 years, And in the last 2 years, I've become in-shop foreman.
I wanted to move into something a little bit more dynamic. So the training department looked like a good fit. And it, for my style, it fit perfect. In a different place all the time, meet different people all the time, and I get to work on pretty much full spectrum product for training, and I love that.
So, I mean, that's great, right? I mean, if we could do that every day, we have about 9,000-ish technicians. If we could do this for every technician felt that engaged, felt like they had a supervisor that could grow them, help them find their next jobs and move on, we'd never lose any of them. But I can tell you that we have in our branches in the eastern corridor, we have, in one particular branch, we have 48% turnover. So what does that tell you from a revolving door perspective? We're hiring talent, we're training talent, we're certifying them. The guy next door is hiring them. And they're going to Peterbilt dealers, they're going to dealers. So for $3 an hour extra, $4 an hour extra. So we have a problem. We have our branches in Australia that have 18% year-on-year attrition. And that is not because there's something wrong there, it's just that we are not being able to connect at some level with the people that work there. Yes, maybe we give them more money, they will, but when we went down and actually started talking to people and trying to see if we could do it the money way, I mean, it's going to become a stock market eventually. Somebody else is going to pay more. If that's going to be the only way we retain people, somebody else is always going to pay more. And we're not going to be able to catch up. So I look at this not as a problem, I look at this as an opportunity. This is a great opportunity for us to step up and say, how can I make sure that out of my, most of my 9,000 technicians have that wonderful career development path? I'm going to share with you a little bit of what our technology journey has been, and this is Cummins enterprise-wide. So remember, again, we're talking about manufacturing, organization, large. Cummins is very good at processes. We're very good at large-scale deployment. As a corporation, we've had years of, we're 100 years old this year, and we do this really well. So this last 2 years, we have engaged in a technician, in a journey of re-looking at our values and kind of looking at our leadership culture and using technology to deploy that leadership culture. And really what stands out here is inspiring and encouraging all employees to reach their full potential. So where one of the employees on the video says, everyone at Cummins can grow. I mean, you can become a trainer, you can go a different path, you define your path. And that's something our senior leadership believes very strongly. But for you to define your path, I have to show you what the paths are. I have to have a conversation with you. Now think about, again, that service manager, and think about his or her life in terms of customer timelines, events, HSE, safety issues, whatever else that's going on that particular day. And now I have to sit down and have a diagnostic conversation with a person who's actually looking at standard repair times. And I take away an hour, maybe 30 minutes from his or her day job and say, come talk to me about development. Is that even on my list of things? So as an enterprise, we went ahead, we said that this is our philosophy, this is what we want to do. We want to build organizational capability. We want to make sure that we're providing quality tools to our people. We want the quality of our people to grow. And the way we do that is by deploying an interconnected talent management system. We actually deployed Oracle Fusion. And we said we would take the onus of talent management, turn it into manager self-service. So managers own talent, managers own job postings. So you're a manager, you have an open position, you get to decide, you go into the system and you post a job. You want to fill a technician job with something else, so long as you and your boss, and either financially or within budget, you can go ahead and do it. And that then goes in through the process of hiring, etc. You go in and schedule performance reviews. You go in and decide, you have library objectives, but you can set objectives. You will do competency assessment. HR, you're not going to do that anymore. So we took away a large part of people processes that were very policed by HR, and we said, okay, fine, no more policing. So this year, for the first time, almost 2,400 managers across distribution went in and entered their annual salary reviews in the system directly. So we said, it's yours, you have a budget. We've broken down the budget by, how many people you have, whatever the agreed upon cost is. You go and put it, you decide you want to pay Peter, you want to pay Paul, entirely up to you. So by doing that, we said, we are now moving the accountability to managers. Managers go in and do that, but then what we've also done is we've complicated the life of a manager now. Because now this ITM, the ITM that we're talking about in integrated talent management, now that service manager also has to do job postings, also has to schedule a competency development conversation. And oh, by the way, this is a person that most likely has joined as a technician and has grown up the value chain. So the question you ask is, have you even had a great talent conversation yourself? How do you recognize it? So I can train you all day, but if you've never been part of it, you're never going to be able to replicate it. I have to give you space to practice. And how am I going to take you away from that very, very important job and put you in practice sessions? Like, how do you practice managing people? How do you decide? One of the technicians on the video was talking about a level A, level B job. Technician jobs are broken down into levels. Now, I'm hiring Paul, and Paul's sitting in front of me, and I'm interviewing Paul. First of all, I'm interviewing, so I can give you a bunch of questions, but at the end of the day, you will have to exercise judgment. And then you have to decide, okay, how am I going to pay Paul? Oh, do I have a contract? Can I go to someone and ask? You can, but it's your decision. So we've suddenly added a lot of complexity into the life of a service manager, and directionally that's the way to go, because what we're saying is, as a manager, as a supervisor, you are best placed to make that decision. I mean, I don't know, we can do, we used to do ranking and stacking. I mean, ranking and stacking, you guys have all been part of companies where you did the bell curve or performance management, you can have 30% A's, and it doesn't make sense, right? I mean, who knows whether the person that works for me has accomplished their job or not? I know. Nobody else knows unless I tell people. So really the best decision of capability, of performance, how much you should get paid, of course, within parameters, is the manager. But that works very well when you look at and this is actually an image that is in our training deck, and I kind of been challenging that a little bit to say, in that scenario, in an office setting, that works. We can also allow for practice. We can do simulations, trainings, workshops. How am I going to do that in a plan? How am I going to do that in a workshop? What happens to the 6 RVs that are waiting on the bays? Like, who's going to manage them? The customers are unhappy. Especially if the customers are things like New York Transit or Orange County Transit. They're high value, very high touch customers. They're not going to wait because, oh, I have to do a competency assessment with my technicians. So we have to find this balance somewhere, and that is the definition of the problem that we're trying to address. I'm going to share with you the approach that we are taking. So we've taken various different ways of going at it, and I will tell you, complete transparency here, we've been going at it for the last 3 years. We have tried different things. We have all the infrastructure. We have an L&D site, we have leadership development curriculums, we've set it all up, we push it out to people. None of that is great, but what is happening is, what is the pull? What's the adoption? And for that, we went ahead and kind of said we would use some of those interesting tools that everyone talks about these days. We're going to do some persona development, and we're going to do some empathy mapping, and kind of try to understand and define this problem from the customer's lens, from the user's lens. So to do that, we said 2 more data points. One is our dispersion. We have that's an actual live map of our locations in the United States. And the interesting point of that is, in a large building, if you have a campus approach, if I'm a manager, first-time manager, don't quite know what to do, I can go ask someone. I can go ask someone who's been a manager for a long time, what do you do? Like, how do you do this? Like, how do you rate this form? Go find HR or go find my boss and get some coaching. In only 5 to 10% of our locations are our managers co-located with another manager. So you're in the middle of nowhere, you're in a site, you're the senior most guy there. Everything kind of stops at you. So you don't have that coach, that person that can help you or share some tips and tricks with you. And if you look at this globally, this just kind of, if you look at it, my biggest challenges are like Bolivia or Paraguay or parts of Africa, parts of Asia, where we're located, where Cummins is a it's not a big brand. We're a big brand in a lot of different parts of the world. We're certainly not in kind of Latin American countries. We're not as important. So a lot of our talent isn't necessarily, we have to fight to get them. And then once you do that, and you leave a person with a lot of responsibilities, and they don't know who to go to, that can become challenging. And the problem, kind of compounds itself. The other thing we looked at was spans of control. And we kind of said, what's the variation? So when we design solutions, we do it with a specific, standard in mind. What we forget is, if you look at service, which is where, the function that I'm talking about, look at the variation. I mean, how do we start thinking of a standard solution deployment, measures, KPIs, what you will, when I have that kind of variation? It's challenging, right? So that's kind of my problem definition, if you will. And I'm going to share with you some of these personas that I talked about. So if you've used and experimented with personas, actually the human resources function probably does the least with them. But we started, so essentially what these are not real people, they're basically demographic preferences, information based on users that we've interviewed over different geographies. And our premise is, if we can look at the motivations of people, if we can look at the aspirations, the motivations, the learning styles, the preferences, the interests, the age, age and other demographic information, we can create some standard personas. We can probably, if we create 200, we can narrow it down to maybe 5 buckets of personas. And I'm sharing with you just a few to give you an idea of what we were looking for. One question that we got asked is, not everybody wants development. Not everybody wants to be a service manager. People want to just do their jobs. They want to do their jobs, pay them more, and they will do their jobs and they will stay with us. This is an actual technician that I met in one of our branches in Virginia, who 10 years in the company, and he said, I wish 10 years ago somebody had told me that I would have a job and a mortgage. I was young, I didn't quite care, and I didn't know how to grow. Now, I can see the value, because his motivation is obviously, I have a mortgage, I need to pay, I need to have, think about my children's careers, because I didn't want them to grow. And 10 years ago, I didn't think about it. So he is a certain kind of persona, loves what he does, wants to stretch, absolutely has no idea how. The other kind of role that we looked at is, this is a person, a customer service advisor is what we call it. Again, the best example is when you take your car in for service, the person that gives you the quote is this person. So they would talk to the customer, find out when can you come in, find out if the parts are available, find out if the technicians are available, build the quote, make sure the customer is okay with the quote, go back and forth, and then schedule things, and then handle that customer interface end to end. A lot of these people, we actually have no hiring strategy for them. So if you start looking at what kind of people, from a demographic, source, a preferences perspective, we have a wide range. We have people that have families that were basically sitting around doing nothing, walked by a Cummins branch, said, oh, there are trucks going in, like RVs, like trucks, maybe just go in and find out, what do you guys do? And just got a job. Somebody who's relocated back to a town, spoke to a family member who knew Cummins had a branch. Some people that have come in that have had backgrounds in hospitality and home cleaning. I mean, if you start looking at the kind of people, the kind of skill sets and competencies we're looking at in this space, it's huge. And again, this is a very neglected part of the population, but if you think about the criticality, this is the group that actually meets our customers. They're the first line of defense. And finally, the service manager. Again, we have all kinds. We have people that have grown through the engineering track. We have people that have become, grown from technicians. So we have all these different types of people. One standard solution isn't necessarily going to work for us. So this is how we define the problem. 2 years of working through it, looking at empathy mapping, looking at developing personas. This is our problem definition. What we then did was we started working with not a project charter approach, but we started working with, so first let me tell you what we actually did. We went ahead and developed a site. This is a Cummins site, this is not a distribution site. What we are doing, this is accessible to all managers. What we are doing now is we are tracking website usage. We're tracking who goes, how many people go, because if they don't go, then we need to take this off and do something else. But more importantly, where are they going, how much time are they spending? So we want to measure paths, we want to measure pull. The other thing is we have now developed what we believe our solution definition. And this is defined in partnership with the user. So we use service managers from 8 locations to come in and workshop with us through several days, collecting not voice of the business, but more, take a piece of paper, write out on a sticky note, stick it on the wall, and then we start doing affinity diagrams, group views together. We came out with a few things. We need a customized L&D solution. We need to have a how-to. We have to have a demonstrated model. We have to do continuous measurement, but we don't want dashboards. Everybody was very clear they did not want dashboards. And we have to be able to correct for failure, because we do big bang approach. By the time we've done the big bang, the situation has changed, and it takes us some time to get there because there's resources involved. So how do we do small, localized solutions and then correct for failure, because we have to be willing to do that. This is an example of what came out of the workshop. We used words like needs, wants, fears to help us provide more descriptors, as opposed to charter type approach that somebody sits in a office and creates. And if you look at this, it says things like sitting for long, boring hours in training. And it's difficult, but especially for the people that created the training. But if you don't get to the heart of the fear, you're not going to be able to solve the problem. We were also we also asked for things like features. I said, what do you want in it? And people said, we want user graphics. We want videos. Somebody actually gave us an example of a TED Talk. Well, if you it's like a TED Talk, maybe I can just watch it on my phone. We had somebody, one of our service managers, surprisingly, has a brother who works for a luxury goods franchise, and said, maybe you can use to push learning into my social media platforms. Now, I don't know the interesting part about doing this type of an exercise is not to limit any suggestion. Put whatever you want up. So we literally did not throw away. We had a conference room full of stickies all over. But it gave us an enormous amount of value in terms of identifying things like cool, printable. So some people said we want to be able to print it out and take it away. Coachable, things that we would otherwise not have thought of. We still understand, and these were the challenges that we came up with. We understand that we have dispersion. I have access to technology there, but what came through our workshop was adoption of technology. So it's not that I give you an iPad and you just access it, but are you going to go and access it actually? I mean, people do that with Facebook and Instagram all the time. How do you make it cool enough so that people will start pulling how to have great conversations from the video store? So there is that big piece of, how do I make that technology cool and aspirational enough that people will draw in it? And the biggest thing, of course, the most difficult to do is how do we change behavior? We believe that coming up with at least getting to the point of where our customers want us to land is solution enough. We still don't know how to do it, but we've at least defined what our success measures are, and that's all that I have to share with you. So I know this is not a solution, but I hope I gave you a lot to think about and shared a different way of doing people development and using some cool tools. And I hope you found that useful. Any questions?
I've got one. So maybe just a general comment. I imagine most people in the room are habitual, nonstop learners. So I happily will read about this in my leisure time. And I wonder if in this scenario, if people who are doing those service manager jobs, is there a way to connect the material to just what they want to learn about and know more about? Or would this be treated more like, well, they just want me to work outside of my busy hours, and I should be doing these videos at home, and I don't have the time for that, and they're not paying me to watch these videos. I'll read books on my own to learn. I'll watch hours of Gordon Ramsay cooking shows to get a little bit better in the
And
kitchen.
that's exactly my point.
You know what I mean?
You
So
will
how do
read
you-
that. I think that's the value. You
Yeah.
will watch because obviously you like food and you like cooking.
Yeah,
You're doing that on your own time. We've got to find what is it that emotional connect is
right.
with the person that wants to learn. You're absolutely right.
Mhm.
That is where our personas come in.
Yeah,
Because we've got to find those buckets of interest.
right.
We were told, one of the things that came out in monster trucks, most people that work in servicing, engineering, in the trucking industry, like trucks, tractor pulls.
Mhm.
They like tractor pull shows. I didn't even know there was a thing called a tractor pull till I actually started going to branches.
Yeah.
But I was told that there are. But there are things like racing.
Yeah.
Most people that work in the auto industry or in the ancillary industry like to know about it, follow it.
Mhm.
So how do we use those interests to position that learning and push that? A lot of naysayers in that area have basically said, oh, we're going to take Cummins content and put it on a third-party site. I tell you that those are all big questions, but what we're really seeing is we've tried to solve this the conventional way, and it hasn't worked.
Mhm.
So why not try the unconventional way? And to your point, appeal to what do you like?
Mhm.
What do you like to do in your spare time?
Yeah.
Why not use gamification, right? A lot of trainings nowadays can be done with gamification. So I was actually going to some demos for my own team and connected with quite a few vendors. And they've got an interesting solution where they convert your entire training to game format. It could be a card racing game, it could be any other format of game. They've got multiple games.
Love to hear more. You have my information. Please, if you would love it if you could send. I mean, that's definitely a lot of. You would think gamification is for IT, but no. I mean, you could do it with anything.
Absolutely. So my discussion was on the banking side. I run the banking call center. So the training is more around products, banking products, and these are pretty complex products. They're not kind of game kind of products, right? So converting these into games, again, we did a POC and some proof of concept, and looked like the most usable concept.
Thank you. That was helpful. We'll really appreciate if you could send some connections.
How do you balance, you mentioned span of control and some of the complexities that adds when you're going for mass deployment. How do you balance when's the right time to deploy versus when's the right time to get span of control at an acceptable level in order to enable the deployment? Like is it the cart or the horse that goes first?
I don't think there is an answer to that. Because
Okay.
if you think about, so one is, I interestingly attended something else on Agile today, and we talked about control not being, control is what it is, you're controlling. The interesting thing about spans of control is there isn't much that you can do about it. Because if you think of it from an operational perspective, if I say I want to bring span of control down, am I talking of adding more people? Any business unit president is going to have a heart attack if you put that cost in front of them. So what we've been doing with spans is we think about the coach model, the guide, the practice space. So one of the things that we have been thinking about is maybe there is a way to turn some of these experienced techs into kind of frontline leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings your effective span down. So now from, leading 15 people, I just have the 6 people that I regularly work with. And it gives you a less of a stress-free, safe space to practice. So you don't do hire and fire, so you're protected somewhat, in that space, but you do the development side. So we're thinking about potentially taking the managerial job and breaking it down and thinking about it from a perspective of maybe we create this step role where you just take the good stuff. Like, I'm not going to put discipline down there, but I'm going to put development, I'm going to put coaching, I'm going to put, and I'm going to give you some practice, try it, see what it feels like. So, don't know if it will work, so we're trying it.
Yeah, we're in the same boat.
Sure.
You mentioned that you don't want to use dashboards. So how you're going to measure and how you're going to understand if this is going to be successful or not?
I say we don't use dashboards because that's what our customers said. Like, please don't put up another set of KPIs. We've had KPIs, KSIs, whatever, what you want to go for. I think we have to still use measures. We just have to use them in a way that people find cool. So maybe gamification is the solution. Maybe you have to measure. But I think we have to frame it and present it in a way that it's not, we have now 16 measures, 4 functions came together and gave us all of this. Now you want to add 4 more. So I think that's what I meant when I said we shouldn't be using dashboards. That's what our customers say. Sorry, you had?
Just wondered if you had considered some sort of information sharing in a way of, like, maybe you encourage them to track what type of issues and then create like an internal YouTube videos that, they can pull up their phone and say, hey, this is the problem I'm having, and maybe
That's a
there's a
great
video
idea.
that pops up, and, a lot of people do their own auto work because they look up a YouTube video on how to repair something. So
That's a
you
great
have it
idea.
right in their hand, and then maybe that would also encourage them to report what kind of problems, so you get a little bit of your data, but then it would,
That's a great idea. Thank you. One of our senior leaders was leading a difficult to manage region in Australia, and he started doing that a little bit, called it walk the talk, and he would literally just hold a phone in front of himself, created a YouTube channel, and would use that to communicate with the organization, send out little notes to people to ask them to subscribe. That's a great idea.
you could challenge them to, and competition, you can give awards to the best ones, or most helpful or useful.
That's a great idea. If I combine both of yours, then we come up to the cool factor.
All right, one last question.
How did you arrive at the decision to, my understanding is you kind of decentralize the human resource, one of the human resources processes to
We use technology to do that, yes.
Okay, so through tech. So there's a capacity challenge though with that manager level. And
From a timing, yeah.
Right, and then having those additional tasks on their plate. So I guess what I'm curious of is, I don't know if you said in Kevin Dubin's talk about basically getting the flow right at the shop floor so that you really don't need manager intervention or manager involvement. Were you assessing kind of the maturity level of each one of those branches to determine, whether or not they had the capacity to add these additional tasks to their plate, or so that's kind of where you're at?
That's where we're at. So
Okay.
I think what we're hearing is anecdotal. It's unless you do a time study, you can't really establish data points of how much of your day do you spend on it, or how much of your week do you spend on it. In the manufacturing unit organization, which is kind of most of Cummins, it works. In our business unit, in the large branches probably, in the smaller branches, the anecdotal information is that it doesn't. We have not done a full-time study, but we think the anecdotal information is voiced strong enough to say, I'm literally doing this on my own time.
Cool. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, one last round of applause. Great presentation. Thank you very much.